Hey guys, so for this discussion board, I first started by answering part A, which was the two questions about the approaches that are based on the wellness model, and then also the biopsychosocial model. And then for part B, I listened to the podcast and answered some questions about that. So for part A, one of the counseling approaches that are based off of wellness model is the Wheel of Wellness. It is rooted in individual psychology, and there's 5 major life tasks, which are spirituality, self-direction, work and leisure, friendship, and love, where spirituality is at the center of the wheel, and it's considered to be the most important component of well-being. And the second model was the individual self, or the IS-well model. It helps the clients assess, personal wellness and what kind of things they want to do to enhance that wellness. So the primary factor is global wellness, with 5 secondary order factors, which are the creative self, coping, social, essential, and physical self. And ways that you could kind of use this model in counseling is the first step is to introduce the wellness model. So you would, discuss what the model is, what it does, just kind of describe it and introduce it to the client. The second step would be to assess wellness components, so you would start by administering a 5-factor wellness inventory to the client, and after that is finished, you would examine and discuss the scores and kind of make decisions based off of those scores and what you can do, what those scores reflect. Step 3 would be to develop a personal wellness plan. So that should include objectives for change, methods for how to make those changes, and then also resources that can help facilitate that change process. And then the last step is evaluation and follow-up, and this needs to accompany prevention or intervention strategies that are implemented, and you can also make short-term and long-term goals in this area. For question number 2, the biopsychosocial model is a holistic alternative that responds to people's suffering and distress, and also it's used to help clients feel more understood. It consists of the biology, psychology, and social cultural aspects or factors that are associated with health and well-being. I think it helps provide a framework for being able to understand the client with, you get biological factors, psychological factors, and social culture factors, and those 3 branches kind of can come in and help define a person better. You get to understand those 3 aspects, which are very important, and they contribute to who the client is as a person. So you get to see where the client comes from, what they live like, what they enjoy, their psychology behind all of what they're doing, where they live in, the culture that they live in, and then also their own genetic makeup and everything. So I think it's being able to understand all those aspects together would really help you get a whole picture of the client, because you're able to see these 3 factors and maybe understand what area needs more work, what area needs less work, kind of where the problem is, and then how to fix it based off of that. So for part B, I was listening to the podcast, and what really struck me at first when listening was that the speaker said that spirituality and religion are separate, but they're also very similar. And personally, I had a hard time thinking of the difference of the definition of them, because I kind of associate the 2 together. But she said that religion is kind of more public and broad, and it's more associated with organized practices and beliefs, but whereas spirituality is private, and it's your own personal beliefs, and it's not always associated with an organized religion, or it doesn't identify with a specific religion. And I thought it was interesting that, clients can identify as religious, spiritual, both, neither. I think it was, it's important to be able to understand that not all clients are going to be able to identify the same, or, she mentioned that one client she had did not want to identify as religious, but he was very, open about his spirituality, and he was like, I'm spiritual, but I don't want to be religious. So I thought that was pretty interesting to understand. So the issue related to rural areas, I thought this was interesting because, it makes sense that sometimes a client in a rural area might not have the same views as the whole, I guess, and the counselor might not, have an understanding of the spiritual or religious views of that client, and they don't really have the resources directly in that area to where they can get more knowledge based off of this. So it's important for the counselor to, maybe they could reach out and branch out of the setting, and they could, find someone in the area who could be a resource, because the client, there's someone, most likely they have a group that they're based off of. They have someone in that area that shares similar views and beliefs as them, so the counselor can reach out to them as a resource, or the internet, which was mentioned. And I think the internet is such a huge resource that I think we need to just utilize as much as we can, because there's so much information on everything on the internet. And I think it'd be very beneficial for a counselor to be able to understand a client better with, religious or spiritual beliefs that maybe you're not very, you don't really know that well, you don't really understand that well. I think the internet would help a lot with that. And personally, I do think it's important to be able to discuss spirituality and religion with clients. I think it would be difficult for me just because I don't have a wide, broad range of every religion and a understanding of, spirituality. I think that's something that I personally need to work on and understand more. But I do think it's important to be able to discuss it, because, if a client comes in and they mention their spirituality or their religion, it's obviously something that's, prominent in their life, and it's something worth discussing because it's part of them, and it's going to help you to understand them as a whole person, rather than as a part. And, the religion and spirituality makes up that person. So I think it would be important to discuss it, but also I think as a counselor, you need to be able to understand the religion and the spirituality, and you need to be able to reach out for help and resources. You need to, if you're uncomfortable with something or you don't understand something, reach out to a supervisor or research it. If I'm not able to counsel the client very well, if I don't understand it very well, I personally don't think I'd be a good asset for them. I would want to be able to personally, admit defeat, I guess, in a way, and just say, hey, I'm not able to counsel, I need to refer my client to someone else. I need to I need to be more aware of, where I'm at, where I can go with everything. I need to, understand my limitations and my beliefs, and if I'm uncomfortable and it doesn't really, I just don't want to mix with the code of ethics, and then also I just want my client to be able to have all the resources and all that help available. And if I'm not able to provide that, then I think it'd be important for me to reach out to another client or refer the client to another counselor, just so that they can be benefited more. I think also I would struggle with, knowing the code of ethics, and then don't want to tiptoe around it when talking about religion and spirituality. I think that's something I might struggle with, personally as a counselor. But I do think it is very important to be able to discuss these factors, because it makes up a client, it makes who they are, and I think it is important to, show the client, oh, like, tell me more about this. Like, I want to, like, be able to understand more. 'Cause, I mean, really, it's going to benefit both of us. Like, I'll be able to get a better understanding of a religion or a spiritual belief, and then they'll be able to talk about it more and discuss it more. So, but yeah, this was a very eye-opening discussion board. I've kind of thought about discussing religion and spirituality, but it hasn't been like a prominent thought. I think, after like listening to the podcast, and I think I just need to focus more attention on that, because I know it's definitely something I'm going to encounter, and it's something that I really need to understand and know more as I become a counselor. So thank you for listening, and I'm excited to hear about what everyone else has to say.